We're Britt and Mike, and this is our dog Leah. We're converting our 2021 Ford Transit van into a home on wheels. Last week, we attached our two 200-watt solar panels to our roof rack, and in this week's video, we're starting on part 1 of our subfloor using Minicell foam. Good afternoon, welcome to Van Build episode 7. So last week, if you haven't seen that video yet, Mike attached the solar panels onto our roof, and so our roof is now just ready for decking, right?
Yep, it's the last thing up there.
We got our solar panels, our AC, our max fan, so that's going really well.
So today I'm gonna go down to Home Depot and I'm gonna pick up the plywood for the subfloor. I'm getting marine grade pressure treated plywood. It's pretty expensive, but it should prevent any kind of mold or rot or anything like that under the subfloor. So cool. And then after that, I'm gonna start on insulating the floor. So for the floor insulation, I went with Minicell 1/4 inch foam, and basically I'm gonna cut strips to fill in between all of the ribs on the floor, and then I have another 1/4 inch to go over that, and then there's this other product, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a little thin layer that goes in there too, just for a little added layer of insulation. Cool.
Cool.
Okay, so just a quick note on the solar panels. Everything's hooked up, everything, all the wiring is done now. When I left off last time, I know that I hadn't finished the wiring just yet, just because I didn't know if I wanted to wire in series or parallel. So ultimately I decided to wire in series. It's very technical and it changes based on your solar arrangement and you know what you have going on. But with my two 200-watt panels, the amp draw would have been too high for 10 gauge wire, which is what I have to run through the roof. So I decided to run, or that's if I ran in parallel. So I decided to run in series, which the amp draw is not too high for 10 gauge cable, and yeah, should work well for our setup. Everything that I learned from solar and electrical so far for this build has been through Explorer's Life. We'll link them in the description here. He has a calculator and all sorts of stuff that's just great for this thing. So off to get that plywood. All right, success. Only had to drive 25 miles, so unfortunately, they don't have a lot of marine grade plywood in the city that we live in. So one of the next towns over has a lake though, and I think they have a higher need for marine grade plywood. So I've been up to some pretty boring stuff, so I decided not to film a bunch today just because I'll spare you guys all that. But got the plywood unloaded, brought it inside, and I've just been working on prepping the van to put down the flooring. So I came through, cleaned up the floor really good, got on my hands and knees and scrubbed it and got all the dirt and gunk out here that I could. You'll see some little white spots here and there. I just decided to take some of my clean metal primer as just the last step before I put the floor down, and just go over and touch up any scratches, even the superficial ones that I could find that were, you know, look like they could be troublesome later on down the road. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our floor insulation, our Minicell foam. So as you can see here, it comes in this big roll from the buyer that we got it from. There is a 0.4 inch thick Minicell that's going to go between all the ribs, all the little corrugations on the bottom of the van. You see that's the thicker stuff. And then there is a 1/4 inch layer that's going to go over the top of the whole thing once it's done. Between the two layers, you probably can't see it down there, but there's, I think it's called TAI. It's T-A-I. And it's just a 0.8 millimeter thick piece of insulation that goes across the whole floorboard of the van. There's a few reasons that we opted for this. I've already talked about the height that's going to help me add to the van. I mean, a lot of people use 1 inch or 1/2 inch foam board to insulate the floor of their van, and you know, I just didn't want to do something like a 1 inch foam board and a 3/4 inch ply and take away, you know, nearly 2 inches by the time I put my floor in and everything else that we have planned. So that's maybe the biggest reason that we went with it, but there's other properties of Minicell that are, you know, also very helpful. So Minicell is fire retardant. Minicell is UV stable. Minicell is hydrophobic. So you won't have to worry so much about mold and rot and stuff under your floor with water resistant materials. And then lastly, Minicell is also a sound deadening material. So just like our 3M Thinsulate and our walls, just like our sound deadener that we use in the van, this is also sound deadening. All great reasons, but clearly, you know, the number one reason for me is that I'm tall and I don't want to, use up any of my ceiling height, my between the top of my head and the ceiling or wherever, the air conditioner that I'm going to be walking under all the time. Should have plenty of room for that with this stuff, but if I added the foam board and some other things, maybe that's not the case. So now that I've filled you guys in on all that stuff, I think I can go ahead and start cutting some of the strips for the corrugation after I unravel this big bundle of Minicell and see exactly what I'm working with here. But yeah, let's get started. Alright, so I've got it laid out here. These are the 0.4 inch pieces that go between the corrugations on the floor. That's pretty hefty. It's pretty dense. Here's the 1/4 inch sheets that go as a top layer, and then down inside there you can see the tie, or however you pronounce it there. So it actually feels a lot like 3M Thinsulate, but it's just kind of pressed or woven. Kind of feels like a blanket, to be honest. That's nice. That's actually more substantial than I expected it to be. Okay. So I saw this on another YouTube channel, Matt and Katie, and Matt did the same thing. Just used a couple clamps on a little table. Got some little sawhorses down here to hold this piece of plywood up, make a little table out of it. And then just measuring. He used like a cutting edge for a saw. I'm using a carpenter square. Same basic idea though. I need some 3-inch pieces here. So basically I just measured out 3 inches all the way down, make sure it's the same on both ends, and then I go ahead and clamp it down both ends, and then I'm ready to cut. Unlike Matt and Katie's ProMaster, all of the ribs, all the corrugations are different widths apart. So I kind of just went through and took a quick little estimate of how far apart they are. Starting on the outside, 4.5 inch, 3 inch, 2 inch, 1.5 inch, 3.5 inch, 3.5 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4.5 inches. And that's not counting all the funny little corrugations that you have on either side, in front and behind the wheel wells. So it'll be a little bit of fun just making sure I get all the pieces cut out that I need to the right sizes. Alright guys, just a quick update. I've probably spent 3 hours cutting out strips of this stuff already, just to lay down in all the corrugations. Here's what we got so far. So as you can see, I'm barefoot because I've cleaned the floor of the van really well, so that when I put the adhesive down, I don't have to worry about cleaning the floors again. I'll show you the process of cutting these out. Slow, tedious work, but I'm really happy with how sturdy this feels, and the cold difference of the cold metal to these foam pieces. Oh my goodness, you can't even feel the cold through these foam pieces. But on the corrugations, it's probably like 45 degrees. Alright, so you're probably noticing me stop between every cut and just clean them up a little bit. You can see that even though I'm using a brand new razor blade, you get these little bits that kind of ball up as you're cutting. So I've just been kind of removing those by hand as I go. And then you can see that I'm writing how long each piece is that I cut, so that when I get back to the van, it is not a mystery. Alright everyone, it's Friday, and it is by far the nicest weather we've had all week. Still a little chilly, but way better than it has been. Here's what I've got done so far. I've got all the pieces cut out for most of the ribs. I'm working on these awkward sections on the side over here. As you can see that one here in the front. I got to cut around a lot of weird little things here in order to fill these sections. So it's really tedious and time consuming right now, but I'm hoping to knock this out in the next couple hours and finally start gluing this stuff down. Okay, so another day pretty much in the books. I cut everything out today for the corrugations. Everything's done. This is a little glimpse of the carnage and the actual leftover insulation for between the corrugations. These little pieces here, I think I'm going to cut them into like little tiny pieces, cubes or whatever, and use them to insulate down inside the bottom of the walls of the van, just because, I mean, might as well use as much of this stuff as possible. So here's what we look like now. Pretty much everywhere has this stuff between the corrugations, except for these places right here. I'm gonna have to go through and cut little pieces to go in each one of these little spots. But I figured I'll do that after I glue down all the pieces I have in here already. So I want to take my floor as far up as possible, insulate it as far up as possible. So overall, this has been very time consuming. When building a van, nothing is as easy as it seems, I guess. But I'm really, really happy with how this has turned out so far. So I decided to pack it in. The adhesive takes a few minutes to get tacky. When I was doing the walls, it typically only took like 30 seconds or 30 to 45 seconds before it got tacky. But right now it's so cold, the adhesive just isn't drying. So I'm gonna come back and work on this hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully it'll be a little warmer. Better luck tomorrow, hopefully. See you guys. Good afternoon. It's now Monday. Right now it's about 48 degrees, and I think we're gonna have a little bit better luck using this spray adhesive today. So I'm about to go out and try to tackle as much of this as possible before the weather turns for the worse again. The adhesive is working much better today. Really the only issue that I'm having right now is that this can is getting really low and I'm spraying at a downward angle. So the adhesive doesn't really want to come out very easily. So what you end up with are these little puddles of adhesive. I don't know if you can really see that. They take a little bit longer to dry. So what I'm kind of trying to do is use the back of my glove to kind of spread around the like little puddles of adhesive, and then I'll just sit here and press on it until it's 100% tacky. And then once it's tacky, I'll just go ahead and put that piece into place. But if you put it down while this stuff is still wet at all, it's not going to stick. One more quick note, don't worry too much about overspray on this stuff. You can see there's some, especially like right in here, there's some overspray going on. That overspray, once it dries, it's not tacky or sticky at all. So, being that this is all going to be covered anyways, it's not a big deal.
Hi everyone, I feel like it's been a few days since I have been in the vlog, and I should have mentioned before episode 7 of this series, but I'm actually working full-time while Mike works on the van full-time, so I don't always get to be around to help. But today I have some free time, and so I get to help with the flooring. So that's so exciting. Getting close! So we're doing these front pieces now, and Mike's gonna finish up the pieces in the corners down here. Piece?
Yep, that's it. That's for all intents and purposes. We're done with this stuff. We just got to do all these little pieces in here, these little gaps. Just decided to save that for last, but
good job.
Hey, this is it. This is what it looks like.
Alright, don't mind the mask pinchings on my nose, but it is getting darker and colder, so we are going to call it a wrap for today with the foam all glued in, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, December 21st. I have taken the liberty of pulling the van up to the garage. Not in the garage because it's too tall. I've put up some plastic drop sheeting, put some sheeting over the doors, and I've got the heater going here to keep it a little bit warmer than it has been. Today, as you can see, I've already started filling these gaps here. I'm going to work my way up using mostly these scrap pieces that I have and fill in all these other gaps in the front. Literally every time you turn the camera on here, there's somebody leaf blowing or mowing a lawn or using a weed eater or something. So just got to work around it. All right, all the dead space is filled and everything is glued down. I think we're ready to lay down the tie insulation, TAI. All right, so a little bit about the TAI insulation that's going to go between the base layer and the top layer of foam. This, I did verify, this is actually Thinsulate. So it's going to have the same sound deadening and insulative properties that we have on our walls, and it's going to give us a nice extra layer of insulation on the floor. So pretty happy with this stuff already. I mean, just like the foam, I mean, the temperature difference is insane already. So definitely worth it. And you can buy this stuff separately. Even if you're not doing Minicell floor insulation, you can still buy this stuff to use for whatever you want. We'll see what it's like when we live in it, but it feels nice right now.
Yeah, it does.
A nice warm blanket for a van. All right, it's 5 p.m. The darkness came and it brought the rain. I actually finished cutting out the Thinsulate for the floor and got everything laid in place just in time for it to start raining. I just went ahead and cleaned everything up. I didn't want to worry about that stuff getting wet. So good thing I did because it's starting to come down. So yeah, I'll pick you up again in the morning. Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, December 23rd. As you can see, I got a nice haircut. Last night I got the rest of the Thinsulate installed on the floor and cut out, and everything is ready to go. All I got to do today is come through and cut the 1/4 inch Minicell foam for the top layer, and then we'll be ready for plywood. Very exciting. All right, there it is. Probably gonna have to trim up a little bit. Looks like this corner is bubbling a little bit. I think I'm gonna probably get some black Gorilla Tape or something and just tape these seams up. There's enough material to cover the whole floor with a little bit of excess left over, but I had to get creative in this section. So I used the biggest 3 pieces I had left and then a strip right here for the last piece. And I took it all the way back to the doors. And I think I'm actually gonna trim just a tiny bit off the edge here because it does come over like a 1/2 inch across this whole edge. But yeah, just about ready for the plywood floors. And I finished this up just in time because it is getting dark.